Excellencies, distinguished guests, and ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the event on green hydrogen, a game changer to achieve net zero in the Republic of Korea. My name is Hee Kyung-son, Communications Lead of the Global Green Growth Institute. Thank you for taking the time to join us in person and online. This hybrid event is co-organized by GGGI and the Australian Embassy in Seoul and held in partnership with the Campaign for Blue Skies and Net Zero 2050 in the Republic of Korea. Korea has stepped up its efforts to move to green hydrogen, and the private sector is taking a lead role in transitioning to a green hydrogen future. And Korean companies are exploring business opportunities as well with hydrogen. In today's event, experts from Australia, Indonesia, and Korea will share their insights on how green hydrogen will be a cornerstone to achieve net zero targets and how it can be a future renewable energy option. They will also discuss the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. Now, without further ado, let me invite our first speaker, Dr. Frank Reisberman, to deliver opening remarks. Please join me in giving him a big round of applause.
Thank you, Hee-kyung, and welcome to our guests here in the room and online as well. Colleagues from FORTESCUE, Future Industries, I can see, but there are many others online. I think we have more than 200 people registered to join online as well, which I think shows us this is a very interesting subject. But I've already been asked by a few GGGI colleagues, why is GGGI working on green hydrogen? Well, if you don't know GGGI, Global Green Growth Institute, we do support our member countries, mostly developing countries and emerging economies, in green growth, both policies and investment projects. And we've worked on quite a few renewable energy projects, but mostly solar PV, which is a lot easier to get into than, let's say, more complex subjects as green hydrogen definitely is. We are working a bit on wind as well. That was for us sort of our step up into larger, more complex, more capital intensive projects. But then about a month ago, we had a visit from Andrew Forrest, the chairman of FORTESCUE Future Industries, and he had a quite compelling vision on how green hydrogen is indeed a game changer. And I won't tell you more because our FFI colleagues will no doubt say more about that. But for me, for GGGI, the interesting aspect that we discovered there was FFI's interest to produce that green hydrogen, not only in Australia, but also in countries like Indonesia and even Ethiopia. That, of course, is the interest for GGGI. If indeed the renewable energy that can be produced in Indonesia or in Laos or in Morocco or in other member countries can be a source for green hydrogen, and that way help solve challenges, probably first a little bit closer by, because we've learned that transportation is definitely a challenge that we hope to learn a bit more about today. But eventually, hopefully, green hydrogen will indeed be the key solution that the International Energy Agency thinks it has to be to decarbonize, hard to decarbonize sectors, and maybe indeed a solution for energy storage as well. So with that background, we're very happy today to indeed make this link between, for us, 3 member countries, Australia and Korea and Indonesia, and to explore opportunities to bring about green hydrogen projects. I'll leave it at that, and I'm looking forward to a very interesting event. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Frank. Next, I would like to invite Excellency Catherine Reaper.
Thank you very much, Director General. Distinguished guests, it's my pleasure to welcome you to today's event. I'd like to firstly thank the Green Grove Institute for hosting us today and to thank them for helping work with us to pull together today's event. This year marks the 60th anniversary of diplomatic relations between Australia and the Republic of Korea. And our long-standing relationship is built on many things. It's built on substantial personal links between our countries, a shared strategic outlook, and significant two-way trade and investment. And Australia's energy and resources exports have played a key role in fueling Korea's rapid development. Korea is now our fourth largest trading partner. And while we're taking the time to reflect on our achievements of the last 60 years, Australia and Korea are also looking forward to the next phase of our relationship. And that includes, importantly, new opportunities for collaboration. Hydrogen is clearly at the forefront of these opportunities. There is very much global momentum to develop the hydrogen economy, and there is momentum that's been created by the global agreement on the need to address climate change. So as advanced industrialized nations, Australia and Korea need to invest in sectors that can both accelerate emissions reductions and support jobs and communities as they recover from the economic impacts of the ongoing pandemic. The Australian government has a national hydrogen strategy that supports the development of clean, innovative and competitive hydrogen industry in Australia and positions Australia to be a world leader in the export of hydrogen by 2030. At the same time, Korea has already shown itself to be a leader in the development of hydrogen technology. Korea has set out ambitious plans for a local hydrogen economy and international hydrogen supply chains. President Moon's target of net zero emissions by 2050 and associated plans to transition to a cleaner energy mix have only accelerated this planning. We are very much looking forward to the outcome of the Korean government's study into international hydrogen supply chains. This is due to be released in the coming months. And the Australian government is ready to work with the Korean government and corporate partners to develop commercial hydrogen supply chains between our countries as soon as possible. Shortly, we will hear from Julie Shuttleworth, the CEO of Australian company FORTESCUE Future Industries. The FORTESCUE Group is at the forefront of green hydrogen development in Australia and around the world. I was pleased to host the chairman of FORTESCUE, Dr. Andrew Forrest, in Seoul just last month. And like the Director General just said, I was also impressed by his vision for green hydrogen development, not only in Australia, but in dozens of countries around the world. The Australian government and Australian companies won't be able to make hydrogen technologies scalable and commercially viable all on our own. For this reason, the Australian government is making funding available to attract co-investment from countries like Korea under a low emissions technology partnership. In May, the Australian government announced it would spend 565 million Australian dollars to support practical, project-based international partnerships to accelerate new low emissions technologies and drive down renewable energy costs. It will be critical that energy technologies such as hydrogen can achieve price parity with fossil fuels. This will allow us to make substantial reductions in global emissions. And it will also ensure that countries don't have to choose between growth and decarbonisation. Many developing countries, particularly in Southeast Asia, will face steep challenges to access clean and affordable energy to meet rapidly growing demand. Here, hydrogen can be a game changer. The race to develop effective vaccines against the coronavirus shows what can be achieved when the world works together towards a common goal. We need to bring that same laser-like focus and collaborative effort to accelerate the global development of new practical technology like hydrogen that will help us both reduce our emissions and grow our economies. I'm very much looking forward to today's discussions. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much. Now, we would like to move to a keynote presentations. Now, first, I would like to ask Sung-Bo Kim, who is CEO of H2 Korea. H2 Korea is an organization dedicated to promoting the hydrogen industry in Korea. Now, please join me in giving him a big round of applause.
Good afternoon. My name is Sung-Bo Kim. As you know, HT Korea, CEO of HT Korea. And today, first of all, I would like to extend my gratitude to all distinguished members and online guests for your active participation today. And I'm very pleased to introduce the strategic roadmap for Korea's hydrogen economy and role of East Korea. Firstly, I'd like to start my presentation with introducing with transition to hydrogen economy. Why is very important? As you know, fossil fuels are the main driver of climate change. So producing large quantities of CO2. So fossil fuels, it has brought obvious environmental issues and result in resource depletion of the earth. So to tackle these issues, the global society adopted the Paris Climate Agreement and now pursuing efforts to avoid the dangerous climate change. As a part of this, clean energy, hydrogen has emerged. The world has now recognized hydrogen as alternative for fossil fuels. Hydrogen energy is a future growth engine with a large ripple effect, which has been used in various fields, as you can see. And transition to a hydrogen society will replace fossil fuels and contribute to greatly reducing greenhouse gas emission. For your information, hydrogen can be classified into gray hydrogen and blue hydrogen, green hydrogen, depending on its production method, the level of CO2 emissions. Among them, green hydrogen, which can be produced with no greenhouse gas emission, will play a key role in realizing carbon neutrality in 2050. In January 2019, the Korean government announced the hydrogen economy roadmap, as you can see, and the world's first hydrogen law was enacted in February last year to realize the hydrogen economy in Korea. In July, the Hydrogen Economy Committee was launched to discuss on established hydrogen policies. Following December, President Moon Jae-in declared carbon neutrality by 2050 and announced the implementation plan for net zero society. Recently, the third hydrogen economy committee was held to discuss way to expanding hydrogen economy infrastructure and boosting private investments. From now on, I will tell you more details on the hydrogen roadmaps, Korean hydrogen roadmap. Under the vision of becoming a world leader of the hydrogen economy, the government presented its development strategies and targets across the entire hydrogen value chain. Korea also established a long-term and specific plan and presented a clear direction for the implementation of the hydrogen economy. As you can see, in 2018, there was 14 units of HRS and 1,800 units of FC EVs supplied. These figures are expected to expand to 660 HRS and 850,000 units of 2030 and 1,200 HRS and 6.2 million units in 2040, respectively. Indeed, we are already seeing tangible outcomes thanks to the joint effort of the public and private sectors. There was significant achievement mainly in the field of utilization. For instance, 14,426 units of FCVs have been supplied this year, and 88 hydrogen refueling stations have been deployed. Furthermore, the capacity of fuel cell power generation exceeded 650 megawatt as of May this year. Now, I would like to take some time to talk about Hydrogen Act. Korea's Hydrogen Act was enacted in February last year and came into effect this February. The act was enable us to establish an organized system, such as the launch of the Hydrogen Economic Committee and designation of dedicated organizations. In addition, it provides a legal basis to foster hydrogen specialized company and create hydrogen complexes. To sum up, Korea has now secured the sustainability of hydrogen policy by enacting the Hydrogen Act. In July last year, the Hydrogen Economic Committee was launched. The first Hydrogen Economic Committee discussed government plans to foster the hydrogen industry, as well as establishment of overseas hydrogen supply chain. The second Hydrogen Economy Committee announced a plan to introduce the mandatory clean hydrogen power generation system. The third Hydrogen Economy Committee presented the government's policy to support private investment plans. In addition, the government designated the Hydrogen Fusion Alliance Promotion Group as an organization in charge of the hydrogen industry. Firstly, Korea is for hydrogen industry promotion, KOGAS for hydrogen distribution, and lastly, KGS for hydrogen safety. For those of you who would like to know more about East Korea, I would like to take some time to talk about our organization. East Korea is a public-private consultative body established to support early transition to a hydrogen economy. We are carrying out various tasks that with the Korean hydrogen economy. East Korea offers customized support activities to both public and private sectors in hydrogen industry. We do try our best to help improving consistency and transparency of hydrogen policies, increasing public's understanding of hydrogen energy, and establishing cooperation network between industry, academia, and research. In addition, we are actively working to preemptively resolve conflicts and issues that may arise during the transition to the hydrogen economy. We are accumulating experiences and know-how in various cases, as you can see from the slide. In particular, we are building partnerships with various countries, include Australian governments, to take up from action for global issues. To transition to a hydrogen economy cannot be achieved with only one country's effort. To realize global hydrogen economy, international cooperation is most essential. We have to work together to cultivate and expand global hydrogen markets. East Korea will continue to actively work to bridge between the global government and the private sectors to expand the global hydrogen economy networks. That's all I want to share with you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kim. Now, we have a distinguished speaker joining us online. As the ambassador mentioned earlier, Julie Shuttleworth is Chief Executive Officer of FORTESCUE Future Industries, a developer, financier, and operator of a global portfolio of renewable energy sources. Julie, over to you.
Thank you, and hello, everybody. Who's controlling the slides, please?
We're controlling it for you, so you can just say next.
Okay, next. Can you go forward to and next? Thank you. Next, please. Thank you. It is a critical point in time to protect our planet, and we must all take action now. FORTESCUE Future Industries wants to lead by example in doing this, but at the same time, we acknowledge that there is a huge challenge to transform the global economy to decarbonise. We are in many countries now developing these long-term major new green industries from the ground up. We are looking to develop renewable energy resources such as solar, wind, geothermal and hydropower in multiple locations and use that renewable energy to create green hydrogen for domestic use and export. And most importantly, when we're in these different countries with these projects, we're focusing on long-term multi-generational relationships with the governments and the communities to make sure we're contributing in a positive way to the communities where we operate. We can go to the next slide, please. FORTESCUE Future Industries has the advantage where we can actually provide not only the supply of green hydrogen, but we actually also need green hydrogen for decarbonising our operations. In the Pilbara, we're using about 1 billion litres per year of diesel by 2030 if we don't do anything. And so by leading by example, by decarbonising, we're showing the world it can be done on a huge industrial platform and at the same time creating that important demand. We are aiming to be a whole of industry green hydrogen player at global scale, not just providing our own operations in the Pilbara, but of course the globe. We are targeting to produce 15 million tonnes of green hydrogen by 2030 from Australia and from other countries into the world markets. We've got a strong track record in FORTESCUE of developing projects, financing and operating those projects, and we'll do the same with our green industry, energy and hydrogen projects and produce this green hydrogen at scale. We've got 3 key objectives in FFI. One is to make green hydrogen the most globally traded seaborne energy commodity in the world. The second is to produce 15 million tonnes of green hydrogen to the world by 2030. And the third objective is to decarbonise our operations by 2030 and abate that 1 billion litres per year of diesel. Next slide, please. This is underpinned by FORTESCUE's track record. We are a top growth stock on the ASX. Over the last 20 years, we've got a huge solid financial support with our large market cap, our strong EBITDA and financial performance, and we've already raised debt and created projects of over $30 billion over our 15 years of operation. Please, the next slide. We're focused, as I mentioned, on generating the renewable power and transmitting that power to electrolysis to either make green hydrogen or green ammonia or other liquid organic hydrogen carriers. So we are very open to various hydrogen vectors to supply the industry depending on the customer demands. Next slide, please. We need to make sure that there is energy security with this venture that we're aiming to deliver the 15 million tonnes won't just come from Australia, but we do have a global portfolio of renewable energy resources. So you can see there Australia, New Zealand, Indonesia, Papua New Guinea is in the Asia Pacific flywheel. And we've got many countries in Africa and Europe that are another production hub, and also a team in Latin America who've been there for 3 or 4 years now with our copper exploration business are driving our Latin America flywheel. And of course the markets, Japan and South Korea, Europe, North America, and also the domestic markets, very important part of this energy supply chain. And the next slide shows a little bit more of a close-up where we're focusing in on Korea. You can see we've got proposed projects in Australia, New Zealand, Indonesia, Papua New Guinea and Malaysia to add to those global projects that I just mentioned, supplying green hydrogen into South Korea and also other global markets. Next slide, please. One of the challenges that was already mentioned was to make sure that green hydrogen is comparable to fossil fuels in terms of cost. And one of the ways that we're aiming to do this is through our own self-manufacturing and our own technology development. We've had research and development underway for many years now across many streams of the green hydrogen value chain. And we are also deploying industrial manufacturing here in Australia to start with, but expanding overseas, particularly to make electrolyzers and fuel cells and other components of the value chain where there is a shortage of supply. And by doing these projects at scale across the globe is one of the key reasons that we can drive the cost down. Next slide, please. I talked about leading by example and becoming carbon neutral by 2030. We've currently got underway right now trials with locomotives, haul trucks, dual rigs, campaigns on testing ship cylinders and designing new ships to run on green ammonia as a fuel. All those are underway right now with our technology demonstrators, and we will be using this technology and research that we're doing right now to decarbonise our operations in the next 8.5 years. We've also installing an electrolyser on one of our mine sites that will run off green electricity from our solar farm, and that will power up a fleet of coaches that run our people around the mine site, purely run on green hydrogen. That's the start of our mobility moving into green hydrogen at our mine sites. Our next project will ramp up to about a 250 megawatt project, and then we'll be doing gigawatt scale projects. We need at least 2.5 gigawatts of renewable energy in the Pilbara to decarbonise our own operations. And of course, that's the focus for us to do that very quickly and build the credibility in the green hydrogen industry. We're also doing development trials right now on making green iron with no coal, simply using renewable electricity and electrolysis. And we're also running trials on using hydrogen for the reduction of iron ore. Of course, being an iron ore mining company, this is very important for Fortescue for our future. And we're already using solar power and soon adding more wind and solar power to our operations to decarbonise our stationary plants. And we've started to reduce our diesel consumption already through using that solar power. But by 2030, we'll be abating 1 billion litres of diesel per year. Next slide shows the importance of communities. Wherever we are around the world, we're very focused on making sure the communities thrive from our projects there. We're ensuring that there's an opportunity, equal opportunity for boys and girls at education and women and men for employment. And we're very focused on working with the governments in our projects to eliminate modern slavery and to make improvements in humanity across our projects. And very importantly, when we look at our projects, human rights is our first factor that we consider, and then the environment, and then the economics. So that's the order of our priorities when we're considering the projects that we're doing. And then just moving to the last slide there on the future, the importance of creating this global supply chain of demand and supply, making sure there's energy security. If you can move to the next slide, please. Fortescue has the track record and the resources and the capability to become the major green energy supplier in the world. And our goal is to become the world's largest green energy supplier and the largest seaborne provider of green hydrogen globally. with a commitment that we'll be making 15 million tonnes of green hydrogen by 2030 from our global projects, not just in Australia, but globally. And I know that was a very short presentation, but it just gave you a little snapshot of Fortescue Future Industries and our global green hydrogen ambitions to support the green hydrogen economy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julie, for sharing your insights. Now, turning to Geneva, we have Jonas Moberg, CEO of the Green Hydrogen Organization. Jonas, do tell us a little bit more about the organization and the Korean chapter. Jonas, over to you.
Thank you very much, and hi everyone. It's a great pleasure, and thank you to GGGI and the Australian Embassy and everyone involved. It might be strange that I'm speaking just after Julie, but it has its own very clear logic. As Fortescue Future Industries have been developing all of these plans and been doing this and been investing here, it has also realized that on a number of these issues, we have to work together. We have to work together with governments, with various think tanks, NGOs, and competitors in order to faster create that enabling environment for this green revolution to happen. And that is why where I come in and where the Green Hydrogen Organization comes in, to work together with people like my colleague Sambok Kim, who we heard from just recently this morning or afternoon, and others, to bring them together and make sure that we really, as the ambassador said a moment ago, with some razor sharp focus, start to make sure that this is not a pipe dream, but that we have truly green hydrogen in our pipes. I have three key messages, everyone. We have all talked about the need for action, but let's be clear about how important that is. The Paris Agreement says 1.5 degrees, that we should keep it to that by 2050. We are already at over 1.2 degrees. We are going to be at 1.5 degrees within less than 10 years' time. We face an emergency. Canada had yesterday 46 degrees. It has never been as remotely hot as that in Canada, just as an example. My second point is there are solutions. It doesn't mean that we need to change our societies in a negative way. There are opportunities, there are jobs, and of course, Korea has come much, much further than just about any other country in this green revolution. But it is going to take a lot of effort. And on this point, I also think it's important that we distinguish for our audience between different kinds of hydrogen. Well, hydrogen is always hydrogen, that's clear. But the key is how we produce it. And it can be produced in a number of different ways. And what we are principally talking about today is hydrogen produced with renewable energy. Clean power and water goes in and out comes hydrogen. That means that we can create through this way a energy supply chain that is totally, absolutely, categorically free from any carbon emissions. In fact, no carbon involved at all. And that is an absolutely key aspect in this. And we need to be clear that there are other forms of hydrogen that we can produce. It's better than a number of other forms of, it's better than using a petrol car, whatever, but it has some quite significant climate and environmental impact that we must be aware of. Now, the third aspect of my brief comments this morning is that we need to enable it. As the ambassador said, green hydrogen is still more expensive than if you produce hydrogen in other ways or compared to other forms of energy supply. And we need to do a whole range of different things to make this happen. We need to make sure that we end subsidies to the fossil fuel sector. We need to make sure that we stimulate pilot projects. We need to work together, governments, think tanks, and in particular the private sector in making such pilot things happen. We need to, as Sang-Bok Kim said, work much more across countries in making these partnerships happen much faster, because it's a totally new supply chain. We're not going to buy oil and gas from a very small number of countries. We're going to produce hydrogen in Australia, but also in many other countries. And we need to start to tie all of these things together. And I'm afraid to say that lastly, the international UN system and multilateral organizations, they struggle a little bit in these sorts of situations. And that is why we've seen GGGI come about, new innovative organizations, multilateral, to address these specific problems. And in just the same way, we're now in a partnership between companies like Fortescue and a number of others and governments, creating the Green Hydrogen Organization. And we look very much forward to work together with H2, Korea, and many of our other partners in Korea in making sure that other countries learn from what you have done, because you are a leader. But there are also things here that we can learn from other countries like Germany, Australia, and so on. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jonas. And now, before moving on to a panel discussion, I would like to ask all the speakers, panelists, and moderators, and also ambassadors joining us today to come forward, come to the front for a group photo session.
If I hold out my hand, we can shake hands, Julie, like this. The other way around.
So now moving on, I would like to give the floor to Fenella Wan, GGGI's Deputy Director and Head of Carbon Pricing. Fenella, over to you.
Thank you so much, Hee-kyung. And excuse me, I have removed my face mask, but I see that we have good shields. I can't, my glasses steam up otherwise. So, okay, Jonas, I think just taking from your point here, you know, we must work together to create the enabling environment. So true. So I'm delighted to be able to present the panel of speakers here, which brings together, you know, private sector, industry, Korea, and a number, and governments of Indonesia as well. So I think it really shows how collaboration can start being the sort of the germs of creation. So let me start by introducing, and I don't know if we can bring these people on the video online, but to start with, Mr. Krisnawan Anditya from the government of Indonesia, the director of the new renewable energy from the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, Government of Indonesia. Perhaps, Pak Krisnawan, if you are online, if you can, there you are.
Okay, hi, good afternoon from Jakarta.
Good afternoon, welcome to the panel. And then further, I'll just introduce all the speakers and then we will go through a series of questions to start and stimulate the conversation. So next, Ms. Minji Kim from the Boston Consulting Group here in Korea. Then Mr. Kyungnam Shin from the Assistant Director General and Head of Investment and Policy Solutions Division at GGGI. Then online we have Mr. Won Chul Chu from the Principal Researcher from the Korean Institute of Energy Research. If you're able to turn on your video, Mr. Chu. Maybe, hopefully. I'll keep going while people find the camera on button. And Mr. Tae-hun An from the Head of Hydrogen Business Department from the Korea Gas Corporation. And finally, Mr. Enda Ginting, who is the Country Manager for Indonesia from Fortescue Future Industries. I don't know, Mr. Ginting, if you're able to turn your video on as well.
I'll try. There you go. Hello, everyone.
Perfect. Thank you very much. That's brilliant. Okay, so we'll see if Mr. Cho can add his video in a moment. But let me start by just going around with a quick round of questions to start the conversation. So, Pak Krisnawan, how might green hydrogen hold the answer to some of Indonesia's major energy challenges? Perhaps let's kick off with that one. No small question, I admit.
Well, before I answer it, let me give the information related to our energy sector commitment toward net zero emission. As you may know that during the COP21 in Paris, our president already shows our commitment to reducing greenhouse gas emission by 29% by our self-effort, or 41% by 2030 according to our NDC. And the contribution from energy sector should be 314 million tons of CO2 in 2030. If 41%, then the number is higher, 398 million tons. And during the Leader Summit, our president again showing the commitment again to encourage green development through the development of green industrial park, and try to unlock investment in the energy transition through the development of biofuel, lithium battery industry, and electric vehicles. Related to your question, green hydrogen, as you may know, as a part of our reducing greenhouse gas emission, we are trying to boosting our renewable energy development. As you may know, Indonesia is a blessing country. We have a very abundant potential of renewables from geothermal, hydro, and wind, solar, and so on. And in part for energy transformation, the one of the green energy to be developed is hydrogen. It is one of already emphasized in our strategy in order keep energy independence, energy security, sustainable development, and trying to keep a low carbon and climate resilience. That's all my comment.
Thank you very, very much. I think, yes, certainly the NDC targets of Indonesia are have been clearly stated and are really a driving force, I think. Let me move on to Ms. Minji Kim. Here, could you help us understand? Currently, grey hydrogen is produced at below about a third of the price of green hydrogen. And I think a couple of our speakers have already noted this, this difference and lack of parity of the two types of hydrogen. So what factors need to change in order to try and drive down the price and make green hydrogen competitive? Let me pass over, Indy.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. green hydrogen is far more expensive than blue or gray hydrogen now. So I think, to unlock the potential and to create the market demand, I think, the government subsidy is essential for a while. So for instance, the US government is proposing the $3 per kilogram subsidy for the green hydrogen, just to make sure, the green hydrogen is competitive in the market and create the customer benefit. But I think over the time, the green hydrogen could be cost competitive in many different factors. The first, as you may know, the electricity price is the most important factor for the green hydrogen cost. But in that regard, the renewable, the power generation, it gains a lot of cost benefits recently. So I believe the renewable, the energy's electricity price will significantly go down in the future. And secondly, I think, the capex of the electrolyzer and other components are also important, and it will be cheaper in the future as well. So BCG estimate the overall, the electrolyzer system cost will go down to the $300 to $400 in the long run. And lastly, I think, the technological innovation matters as well. So we believe in the future, the efficiency of the electrolyzer will significantly be improved. So for instance, the boosting of the PEM electrolyzer's efficiency to over 70% is definitely possible in the future. And I think, we should also consider the price of carbon as well. So since, the carbon tax is, increasing in many different regions, in this regard, the gray hydrogen or the blue hydrogen will become more expensive in the future.
Thank you so much for that, Ms. Kim. I mean, really take away from that the policy approach to try and drive these initial pilots or get that innovation going. The electricity price, clearly we're seeing sub $20 per megawatt hour, around 13 now, which is making it more viable. That electrolyzer capex cost, which I understand is currently more like 750, bringing that down again. And then, as you say, upping the load factors, the technical innovation, and the price of carbon. You hit on my pet subject, so we'll leave that for now, but I think come back to it. Okay, let me move on. Can we just check, is Mr. Cho online? Perfect. Mr. Cho, if I may address a question to you. As the Korean Institute of Energy Research, Korea has taken a leading position in the development of sustainable energy options worldwide. What has the contribution been to the development of green hydrogen so far? Working, I think, a little bit further from Mr. Kim's presentation. How do you see this work evolving in the future from your perspective? Over to you, Mr. Cho. All right, we may have a technical issue on that one, so let's move on to the next speaker and come back to Mr. Cho. Mr. Shin Kyungnam, I will, as my colleague in GGGI. GGGI works as a structurer and an intermediary between financing and policy development, and we've heard from the previous speaker how necessary both are to advance this industry. How do you see the potential expansion of green hydrogen in Asia Pacific working from these 2 points? Thanks.
Thank you, Fenella. Yes. Yeah, as you know, according to European Commission, like a hydrogen strategy, they're saying that green hydrogen expected to take up 25% of all the renewable energy, global energy demand in 2050. And actually, there's strong demand from various sectors. And then recently, under the initiative of my Director General, large project at Challenge, we already accepted like 4 hydrogen project, and they are covering on top of Indonesia, also covering like India, Morocco, and possibly also Laos, Vietnam. So for example, North Sumatra case, this is actually, we are very closely working with our consortium team, FFI, and the COGAS is also here. And just like we can take a look at the potential development of hydrogen project, we can consider like the source of energy. We have 330 megawatt available geothermal power plant in North Sumatra, very near from the Lake Toba. And if we consider like other reserve portion and then nearby like the geothermal power, 1.5 gigawatt is available as a source of energy. What about demand side? Say Mankai, this is one of the biggest like economic like free economic zone nearby the capital city of North Sumatra, Medan, and then they are consuming like huge like hydrogen, green hydrogen from like steel, cement, and then fertilizer also. So this is actually a possible like way we can consider project development. Like for example, exporting the hydrogen to nearby countries like Japan or Korea in the future, maybe in 2 to 3 years. We have a good like Belawan port. Belawan is also another port, Kuala Tanjung, it's under construction very nearby there. So actually, this is the best way we can consider for hydrogen project. Just think about the demand side and then supply side, Sekai Mankai, and then our project site is only 3 hours, 10 minutes by truck. Very near. And if you take a look at another country, for example, like India, more than 6 million tons of hydrogen produced annually, but most of them like gray hydrogen. So they are very much desperate, like develop a new like green hydrogen. And the government of India also started 6 months like trial of hydrogen CNG fuel vehicles for 60 cars. What about Morocco? Morocco is most of the hydrogen, 95% produced like from the fossil energy, and then also 2 million tons annually importing green ammonia importing from overseas. So energy side, they have a huge potential like energy, like the domestic electricity demand more than 1,000 times. They are still producing using their like a huge like a solar PV farm. So this is an area we can consider. So I'm very happy to explore potential area for project in other countries.
Perfect. Thank you, Kyung Nam. And right on time, Mr. Cho, you are, I think, yeah, we see you online now. Would you like me to repeat the question, or are you happy to answer straight off? Looks as if his screen's frozen. I think, oh dear, I think we're still having a few technical hitches there. Okay, we'll move on to the next speaker and we can come back. No problem. Okay, I'd like to move on to Mr. Taehoon An of the Korea Gas Corporation. I think really we want to try and understand, Mr. An, how you fit into the sort of program of green hydrogen in Korea. So can you tell us how the Korean Gas Corporation is contributing to the development of green hydrogen in Korea? And what is its planned role in the supply chain?
KOGAS is a government-backed company and the first mover in hydrogen business in Korea, is preparing a foundation of the hydrogen business, which is an early stage. And KOGAS also plays a key role in hydrogen business as a designated hydrogen distribution center under the Korean government's roadmap of vitalization of hydrogen economy, and focuses on the efficient and economic development of hydrogen infrastructure. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. That's perfect. Okay, let's leave Mr. Cho as well, seeing if he can reconnect. I'd like to move over. Pak Enda in Indonesia with Fortescue as the country manager for Fortescue Future Industries in Indonesia. You know, we've heard some ambitious plans from FFI, you know, aiming to be the largest seaborne H2 provider worldwide, and then Kyungnam stating that 25% of all energy demand by 2050 will be green hydrogen. So that is obviously a very ambitious plan. So from your point of view, could you help us understand, how do you see green hydrogen working to serve Fortescue's activities specifically in Indonesia?
Oh, thanks for the question, Fenella. First of all, I think since we're talking about Indonesia, I might as well just, for the benefit of those who hasn't been to Indonesia, even though it's been written up in a lot of the articles and even including the triple GIs, Indonesia has an abundant renewable resources, and therefore it offers a very exciting opportunity for green hydrogen production. Around in September 2020, Fortescue Future Industries signed up an agreement with the government of Indonesia, basically enabling FFI to conduct scoping studies for projects aiming to utilize Indonesia's hydropower and geothermal resources to support green industrial operations, which are both for potential domestic supply and also for the global export. As of now, we are still progressing very positively. So I'd like to give credits to the Indonesian government for welcoming us, and also like to give credits to Triple GI's work in Indonesia for the policy advocacy that they've been doing in the last couple of years. We're still committed to continue work with the Indonesian government producing green hydrogen in Indonesia, and we're progressing moving forward. I'll take it that's a cue for me to end.
No, please carry on. I think Mr. Cho is still trying to test out his volume. So please do carry on, Pak Enda.
So alongside that, in May 2021, FFI also signed a joint statement of intent with the government of Indonesia, basically accelerating Indonesia's net zero emission targets. Ever since then, there's been a lot of beacons and a lot of strong signals from the government. As we're speaking now, there's actually a draft bill being discussed in Parliament that basically is talking about renewable energies and the energy mix. The Indonesian government recently announced its plans to discontinue its coal power plants, and I think globally this is an important step towards decarbonisation. So not only are we seeing an opportunity, us coming in, but also the opportunity from the government to welcome operations and indicate how the nation intends to be part of a global move to address climate change. So thank you for that work, my fellow Indonesian, Pak Krisnawan. Looking forward to meeting you. I'm currently in Indonesia in the Papuan side. Hope that answers your question, Fenella.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. I think we're certainly seeing a lot of moves in the right direction. So just let's check for one last time. I think his camera's frozen, but Mr. Cho, are you online? Okay, I make no comments about Korean efficiency on the internet, but maybe yes? No? We seem to be having a better connection with Indonesia today than we are with someone down the road in Korea. Okay, let's not make this farcical. Let's move on. Okay, so let me revert back now. I think, you know, we've done some scene setting, and I think let's move back and dig a little deeper into what these plans are and how these might roll out. So perhaps back to you, Pak Krisnawan. And we've seen the EU build a green hydrogen into the heart of their plans for 2050. And that has had a kind of reverse price signal for carbon and has effectively said there must be parity by 2050, therefore carbon must be worth X by 2030. What I'd like to understand, if we can, a little bit better was what Pakenda was saying there about the policies that are now being put in place on energy, especially, you know, around this stopping coal-fired power station, ramping up renewable energy. And how does green hydrogen tie into that? Do we really believe that renewable energy the price is going to come down enough to be really competitive to produce green hydrogen in Indonesia? You're smiling there, Pakenda, I can see. But maybe a challenging question, and I'm not asking for crystal ball gazing on price prediction, but any signals you can give us, please, over to you.
Thank you. Just for your information, hydrogen development Indonesia is still in the research stage, and it was doing the research was in 2007. And until 2019, still there is several cooperations conducted by our colleagues from the BPPT, Technology Agency. And yes, you're right. At the moment, we don't have yet Indonesia specific on hydrogen policy. The one that we are now trying to prepare is like Eden said, that we are not preparing the renewable energy bills. One of the renewable to be put it is hydrogens. And as you may know that hydrogens in the other side is also one of the challenges for Indonesia, because in order to make the price of the hydrogen, green hydrogen particularly, can be compete with other renewable energy in supporting electricity supply and so on, then we need to create the demand side. So we need to also create the environment atmosphere, like in transportation, heat and power for building, heat and power for industry, and so on, in order to declining costs in the upstream side. And this is the one that we are trying to invite all the countries to support us, not only to provide the hydrogen policy in Indonesia, but also try to minimize the cost. For your information, there is several proposals, like Korean already said, that there is a big potential of geothermal in North Sumatra. And yes, there is some pilot project by Pertamina Geothermal Energy to producing green hydrogen from geothermal. That's the one the green hydrogen can be implemented soon. The second one is related to the green hydrogen. Is there is some IPP, HDF Energy, trying to develop initiative green hydrogen from solar PV and wind. So they are trying to combine using the wind, solar, and with the electrolysis and hydrogen storage, fuel cell, and then combined with the lithium battery can supplying the electricity better than only rely on the wind or solar. But the problem is still the challenges that we are facing on is the price. So in this case, we need to have a better understanding how we can trying to reducing the cost of the hydrogen, particularly from renewable energy. And just recently, there is also a big potential of hydro in North Kalimantan, South Kalimantan, and in Sumatra as well. Which is we're trying to not only to develop green industrial park using the hydropower, but in this case we are trying to also propose to producing green hydrogen from hydropower, but and trying to create the demand in the in industrial park in order to making the hydrogen cost can be competitive enough. That's my comment at the moment.
Thank you so much for that. And interesting. I think we've seen for Europe a lot of focus being on offshore wind, on solar PV
Yes.
in North Africa. And so it's really interesting to hear more about maybe sort of more stable or consistent power sources of geothermal, which clearly is not available there. But within your ring of fire, you've got geothermal, looking at hydro as well, which by itself increases the load factor and therefore can help bring down the cost of generation for green hydrogen. So I think a great potential there.
That's why, that's why Indonesia is open up for the opportunity for green hydrogen development through cooperation with various countries. And some Korean companies already shows the interest. FORTESCUE is also already shows the interest to develop green hydrogen in Indonesia, and we are very welcomed. And if we can have some good cooperation, it is not only develop a pilot project for green hydrogen, but also trying propose us with policy, green hydrogen policy. It is also important things that we need from other countries. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that. I think really important and I think a great possibility. I think just briefly, Minji, if I can pass back to you, because I'm just thinking you co-authored a paper in April this year, which talked about the opportunities for not only manufacturers of electrolyzers, but also talked about the different uses of hydrogen. So where is going to be the sweet spot? Who are going to be the buyers of hydrogen? As Christian one said, it's the demand we're looking to increase at the moment. So where can this demand be? Previously we were looking, and for Korea at the moment, we're looking at vehicle and fuel cell, but where else are the potential buyers in the market? Pass to you.
Yeah. So largely, there are three, the source of demand. So one is, the power and energy, and second is the mobility, and the last is industrial use. So traditionally, the hydrogen is not a new material. So it was used largely by the industrial, the power plants. But we see, there are increasing demand from the power generation and the fuel cell, as well as, the hydrogen, the power generation become more, the applicable in the future. Particularly, the Korean government is subsidizing the fuel cell and the hydrogen power generation a lot. And since, the Korean government is subsidizing that demand, I believe, the Korea has very good position to create the hydrogen market in a meaningful manner. And the second, the demand source is mobility. Practically, we believe, the hydrogen should compete against battery, the battery electric car. So in that sense, the hydrogen should outperforming in segments such as, the commercial vehicle or train or, the ship. So I think, the battery electric car plays more important role in passenger cars, and the hydrogen, will play bigger role in the commercial vehicle and the large trucks or segment. And I think the most important and the large, the potential is coming from the industrial utilization. So for instance, the steel making process, we are using a lot of fossil fuel that should be, replaced by the hydrogen. So we estimate the total, the demand of hydrogen of Korea by 2050, and we realize, more than 50% of demand is coming from industrial, the usage. So to unlock the potential of the net zero, I think, to realize the potential from the industrial usage is very important. To that end, the government should design the policy to, to incentivize the companies to change their procedure and equipment to adopt the hydrogen. I think that is very essential, the piece for adoption.
Thank you so much. And I think, that rise recently of these hard to abate areas being so promising for hydrogen, green hydrogen usage. Kyungnam, I'm going to pass to you just on a thought here. A molecule of hydrogen looks the same, whether it's grey or green. You can't tell it apart. So we're all saying we need this drive for green hydrogen, but how are we going to tell? What is going to be the guarantee? The recent IRENA report was talking very heavily about you need proof of origin. Looking at GGGI's historic work on green labeling around green bonds and things, how do you see GGGI being able to position itself to assist?
Well, GGI can play as honest broker, like with the experience, like project development with the financing matching and good network, and also good like professional expertise. Actually, with this one, I think for this project, again, so we can propose, GGI can propose 3 sources of funding, source of financing. First one is that now we have a very good colleague from FFI. They may invest some resources, but on top of this one, COGAS and then GGI will make a joint fact-find mission, conduct a field study to make a project more like viable, and before we invite investment. Second source of funding, financing could be like a collaboration with the GCF. I discussed with GCF, the director, regarding this project, seems very interested. And now they recommend me to also contact PTSMI, accredited entity in Indonesia. And with their support, maybe we can prepare full proposal for GCF. This is another source of funding, financing. Third option is that currently I'm talking with the HT Korea government committee and also the Korean government. And then actually we have a very good proof of evidence, good project processing in the field. Then we can invite also other financing partner, including Korea Export Import Bank and other ODA financial. So actually we have 3 different sources of financing, and this is actually our role. We will play as a center of all the excellence for this task.
Super, thank you, Kyungnam. Maybe if we move on to Mr. An. I understand that KOGAS has announced the establishment of a hydrogen business headquarters earlier this year. What were the rationale behind the establishment, and tell us about the progress you've made so far?
We had a major organization restructuring, building a hydrogen business department from a division level to speed up project development and make a hydrogen business as a nucleus engine. KOGAS will start a new hydrogen refueling station operation and will develop more than 10 stations this year, including 2 hydrogen production centers under construction. And the world first hydrogen mega station development will be started next year and completed by 2024. Also, the hydrogen exchange center development and its exchange system is under progress to open it by 2023. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, let me come over to Pakenda for a further question, and then Frank, if you don't mind, I might turn to you for a couple of comments as well and questions. But Pakenda, I mean, Julie said earlier, you're planning on abating 1 billion litres of diesel by 2030. You know, that's That's a lot. So, you know, we understand as far as Indonesia's contribution towards this, that you have operations in Kalimantan, North and East, and Papua. So can you tell us a little bit more about these operations in light of, you know, just the earlier comments around how Indonesia, you know, has these renewable energy sources and is looking to for outside investors to come in? You know, have you started down that track, or how have you? Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Vanilla. I think, for those who've actually seen some of the geological maps of Kalimantan and Papua, it's a lot of untapped resources and most are renewable. So we're setting up operations in Kalimantan, North and East, and also in Papua. A couple of months ago, the government announced that there'll be a green industrial estate where we'll be one of the tenants and we'll be producing green products, green ammonia and green hydrogen. And so far, I think the provincial government has welcomed it, the district government has welcomed it, and we get a sense that people are actually attracted and very excited about the idea that their region will be producing a source of energy that is the safest and cleanest at the world at the moment. And so we're moving forward and progress has been very good. At the moment, it's scoping studies. We're keen to expedite the process. And recently, the president, through the Maritime Coordinating Minister of Maritime Affairs and Investment, has announced that some of the projects will be expedited to be a groundbreaking by December and then September 2021. So we're seeing that we're also working hard, and the governments or at all levels are also working hard. So we're pushing hard to deliver these the products as soon as possible at the particular scale at what we're working on. Hopefully that answers your question, Vanilla.
Yeah, it does perfectly. Thank you so much, and great to sort of. I think more that we hear about these pilots, the more we can be driving further ones and building the confidence and the track record. I'm going to pass, just in case, Frank, if you have a question, a thought for anyone on the panel, or from what you've gathered from the discussions so far.
Interesting. Well, I'm listening to all these thoughts, and indeed, how rapid this can be implemented, I think, is the critical question. So, you know, is this really far off? And a lot of what we were discussing is pilots, right, and exploring. And on the other hand, there's FORTESCUE's vision of developing a really large-scale green hydrogen economy by 2030, which is only 9 years away. So that is, I think, where my mind is going around, like, how rapidly can we see things that are not, if you like, pilots, but real economy on a step that we can have a credible green hydrogen economy by 2030. So I thought maybe that would be a good question to, well, more people potentially, but Mr. Kim, Sungwok Kim, no, how rapidly can he see real hydrogen economy coming in Korea? Green hydrogen economy, of course.
Mr. Kim.
also the global corporate issues. So the Korean government, as I know, won 2050s. At that time, we expect over 50 or half of the hydrogen use green hydrogen, but still we way to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Interesting. You talk, Mr. Kim, and thank you for the question, Frank. The timing. If I reflect on the discussion here, we've talked a lot about roadmaps and what domestic policy is to try and drive. But I think there's also further drivers that maybe weren't there before, which is, for example, the pricing of carbon. So if we look at Europe now, just starting to kick in a carbon border adjustment mechanism, Korean cars being sold to Europe will have to be made with green steel well before 2050. So I think there are extra drivers that will help push the private sector, and this will be a polluter pays push, and a push to penalize grey hydrogen. So I think luckily that timing may be a bit shorter than it was historically with the extra drivers in place. But I'd like to just at this moment move to the audience and maybe some of our distinguished guests, if there may be a comment. Perfect. Please.
Okay. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gloria Cid, an ambassador of Chile.
Welcome.
And I'm very happy that GGGI hosted this event because green hydrogen is the energy of the future. This has to do everything to do with the future. And Chile also has a national strategy about green hydrogen. We just launched our national strategy last year and last November, and we've been reaching some countries in order to promote our policy and in order to have partnerships, not only with the public and private sector, but also with governments, because we believe, and one of our goals is to become one of the major exporter by 2040 with the cheapest prices. As you know, Chile also belongs to the Pacific Ocean, so we are part of the Asia or Indo-Pacific community. So our borders are very much close to this area. And through our public diplomacy, also we hosted this year 2 summits. One of them was related to energy, and the other one was about mission innovation. And in that summit, we agreed to partner with some competitors in green hydrogen, and Australia was one of them. So now we are partnered with Australia, with UK, and with the European Union in order to promote public policies to make more accessible the green hydrogen to the audience, to the public. So we have to come up in the coming months with some suggestion in order to know how we can decrease the price, how we can promote the exploration and the exploitation, and also come up with some finance for some other countries. So we'll be working in the same line than Australia and some other countries, promoting and spreading and trying to reach more investment. And Korea is one of our main goals in order to partner with Korea. So thank you very much for the opportunity and the invitation.
Your Excellency, thank you very much for your comments. I think at this point, we've had so much fun, everyone, that the hour is nearly up. So I'm going to take this opportunity to thank my panelists so much for joining. It's been really, really interesting. And I think it would be great if Kyungnam, I think I pass to you for some closing comments on this.
Well, very briefly, first of all, thank you very much actually for your participation. And also I'm very happy to take over like this Korean chapter of Green Hydrogen Organization. And more or less like as Ambassador Karina mentioned, the hydrogen, green hydrogen is the future. By 2030, 2050, 25% of all this like energy will be replaced by this green hydrogen. So actually, I heard that more than $10 trillion addressable market by 2050 coming from green hydrogen. I think this is very much unique or very meaningful like occasion. We get together, and I think this is like a seminar. Launching is very important for us to work together as one team. So maybe sometimes this is going to be a history of the large world hydrogen project starting from our consortium partner. Thank you very much. So may I also, ask?
Thanks,
Yeah.
Kyungnam. I think that closes the discussion. And I'll just say a final word. I'm so sorry, Mr. Cho, that we didn't have a chance to add you into the panel, but I think, you know, hopefully next time we will be able to. So now I'll pass back to Hee Kyung for closing remarks.
Yes, thank you very much, Vanella. And can we all give Vanella and the panelists a big round of applause? Thank you very much, Vanella. And now, before closing the event, I would finally like to give the floor again to Frank and to Catherine. So, Catherine, would you like to go first, or yeah, as you like.
There we go. Thank you very much to everyone involved, I think, for what has been a really fascinating discussion. I think it shows there's definitely room to do more of this. I heard a lot of words around cooperation and partnership, and certainly that's very much our approach as well. Just a brief advertisement that we will be running some more hydrogen industry workshops through 2021. The next one is on 29 July. My colleague James Bourne here has the details for anyone that would like to be involved. And we're going to be working with Australia's states and territories to really dig a bit deeper into some of the existing projects and future investment opportunities that are available. But very much look forward to continuing the discussion. Thank you to my international ambassador colleagues for joining us today. You're an important part of the cooperation story as well. Thanks to GGI. It's been a great session and we look forward to continuing our collaboration as well. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, all of you. I think this was an interesting discussion indeed. We've talked a lot about prices. You know, we as people, we have a hard time looking in the future and seeing a different world. So just let me remind you that indeed we have seen incredibly rapid decline in the prices of renewable energy for the longest part of my career. We had exactly the same discussion about renewable energy as we're having about green hydrogen here, like it's too expensive, it's not going to come, and so on. So those circumstances can change quite rapidly. I remember I bought my first hybrid electric car in 2007, a very ordinary Toyota Prius, which was at the time kind of a special car. And my employer gave me a $4,000 subsidy to buy such a car. It was Google in Silicon Valley. And I can tell you, the parking lots were full of Priuses, but you didn't see them anywhere else. If you fast forward, Norway is the country where they have now found that 80% of the population is willing to buy hybrid or electric vehicles. But of course, that didn't happen without some strong support from the government, without some clear enabling policies, without some clear price signals. It wasn't only technological innovation. It wasn't only Tesla making great cars. It was also governments putting the right enabling policies into the market. And I think that is what we will have to see for green hydrogen as well. And we certainly, as GGI, look forward to working with our member countries, with Korea, with Australia, with Indonesia that we've seen here, and with our other member countries to try and help make this green hydrogen future a reality. So thank you very much for joining us this afternoon, and hope we will see a lot more exciting news in this space. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Catherine and Frank. And now this comes to the end of today's program. Thank you all for joining us in person and online. I hope you found the sessions insightful and fruitful and have some positive takeaways. We do look forward to welcoming you again in other events. Thank you again for your participation. Thank you.